action. I appreciate that. So I have a slideshow, which like, I don't know, when I was in college, they were like, if you make a slideshow, just make it black text on a white background. You're just conveying information, but that's not good enough for a non-technical audience. You guys want to like look at things that look nice. So I found this thing on the internet that I am going to show you. Look at this. Look how nice that looks. Ta-da! Great. So this is going to be programming as a hobby. That's me with a green line over my face because that's what the template wants. Yeah, so I've been a programmer for a pretty long time. I've been programming since I was maybe 17 or so, and I'm 34 now, whatever that math is. But I've also got a bunch of hobbies like that are really disparate, like art and cooking, video games, streaming. These things tend to feed into each other, but they're not the same. And so as a result, like I've got a bunch of projects that I've been working on that sort of expanded my view on what programming is and what programming can be. And it always feels nice to help people like demystify what it is that like I do for money. So let's get to that. Table of contents. This was also here. I thought this looked nice, so I put it in. We're going to get started. I'm not going to teach you how to program. I can't. I'm not good enough to do that. But I'll share some resources at the end to get you started. And I will start to demystify that process as well. And then I'm going to tell you how to find some fun projects for yourself in order to like hammer the knowledge that you're getting into your brain. So I don't know about you, but the only way that I ever truly learn something is if I can experience it myself and work on a project that I find interesting. And then we'll go through a few of my projects, the fun ones, not the not fun ones. And then I'll share some resources, and then I'll be done. And hopefully I won't hit the next slide too much, because then there's a bunch of stuff in the template that's like at the bottom of this presentation, and I didn't write any of that. So getting started, right? Learning how to program. There's a ton of ways that you can do it. We're going to go from most traditional to least traditional. College, right? Super expensive. Takes a lot of time. Food's not that great. And they teach you a lot of stuff that you probably don't actually need to know. You spend 4 years there, and then you leave and you have like an English minor, and no one cares about it. I have an English minor. Boot camp, right? You can do a code boot camp, and this to me is like high intensity interval training for programming. It's like, especially if you take an accelerated course, it's like 10 hours a day of just like cramming your brain full of JavaScript and working on projects. I don't know how these people sleep. I have a number of friends that have been through them, and they're some of my favorite engineers, but bless them. That's, boy, is that hard. You could be self-taught. Programmers used to be self-taught and are still occasionally. You just got to get books and Stack Overflow and more books and more Stack Overflow. And I will say that may not teach you how to program well, but if you're a hobbyist programmer, that doesn't matter, actually. It just matters that your thing works. Bodging, this is a UK term that I picked up. This is effectively the art of taking something that someone made, modifying it slightly, and then now you made that. So if I say like, here's my bot that it will take all the Cheesecake Factory menu items and return how many cheesecakes there are, and you take that and you say, well, I'm going to return how many dishes that contain the word sauce there are, you made a thing, right? And you can like learn how to modify some code and learn how to do small amounts of programming that way. YouTube, not just for fail compilations anymore. You can, there's a bunch of tutorials on how to do any matter of stuff, any language, any package, any whatever you want to learn. It's probably on YouTube, and there's probably a pretty high production thing that will show you how to do it too. Like, it's not, you don't just have to look at like a man in a dark room that's like, today I will show you how to use the notepad. That's programming a long time ago on YouTube. And you can also do it live, right? Just like Bob Ross encouraged us all to paint along with him. You can code along with people live on Twitch, on YouTube, on platforms like that. And you don't even need to buy any paint. You already have a computer. But this isn't about that. This is not about that. Hobbies are done in your free time, okay? and they're low pressure and they're fun. So you don't need to think about like how you learn a thing, right? Like you pick the lowest pressure, easiest thing for you, right? If it's YouTube, if it's Twitch, if it's learning a book, if it's stealing someone else's code and modifying it, which I have done, will do again in the future, then that's fine. The whole point of this is to reframe how you're thinking about programming, because if you work at a tech company, specifically, like obviously we work here, you can see the software that we produce, and however you feel about the software we produce, it's pretty complex. And it is to look at all of our code bases is really scary. But it doesn't have to be, right? The code that we write doesn't have to be spooky, and it doesn't, like the code that you write doesn't have to be up to the level of the stuff that we do here, right? Because you don't have to make money, and you don't have to have metrics and downtime and stuff. So honestly, it's like comparing yourself to like the titans of programming, right? You've got like Alan Turing, who broke the Enigma code. You've got Linus Torvalds, who made Linux, right? And I couldn't find another famous programmer that like non-technical people would know that I also respected, because I thought of Zuckerberg, but I was like, I don't respect him. So instead I picked Mr. Robot. And so you could be like you can't be like Mr. Robot. It's hard to learn that stuff. And it's the same, like if you're viewing programming through the lens of this as a hobby, it's the same thing of if you're learning to cook, you wouldn't compare yourself to Julia Child, American queen of French cuisine. You wouldn't compare yourself as a painter to Monet and his impressionistic art style. And you wouldn't compare yourself to the king of sexy Shrek. You just wouldn't do it. So you have to like lower the pressure on yourself and like really lower the bar of entry here. And you got to get down to the base, right? What is software supposed to be? It's supposed to be helpful. So you could do things that maybe you couldn't do without it. Maybe crunching some numbers you couldn't think of, or going through a bunch of tasks that like you couldn't do in a reasonable amount of time. It makes things repeatable, right? You can do the same thing over and over and over again, and it should produce the same result unless you're using time zones. Faster, right? Almost certainly, it's probably going to be faster than your little piggies can wiggle, right? If you're trying to punch in a bunch of numbers into a calculator, software is going to be able to do that way easier. And art, if you like emotions and experiencing them, there's video games and like art projects and like things that you can do digitally that will inspire a person to have an emotion, if you enjoy those. So what about fun projects, right? What are the projects that are going to make you excited to not only continue learning to program, but to program in your free time as a hobby? Just like somebody who's a woodworker or somebody who paints in their free time, if you decide to spend 3 or 4 hours of your day programming, like what's a fun project that's going to inspire you to continue and keep it up? So projects are everywhere when you think about it. Basically, any task that takes more than a few minutes and more than a little brain power is probably a good candidate. So to-do lists, if you work in spreadsheets, if you upload anything to the internet, these are all like pretty automatable things and like really well understood how to automate things. Good markers are like, if you think about doing it and you get an impending sense of dread or anxiety, maybe alleviate that by automating it. Although that is my constant, so that one's out. If you feel exasperated by like doing a task, maybe automate it. If like you're bored and you're kind of hunger eating, like if you're just like yesterday, it was like 2:30. I was in the middle of a bunch of unit tests and I was like, I don't want to write these unit tests. I want to order Tiff's treats and eat a bunch of cookies instead. I didn't do that. But that's a good marker to be like, if only there was a tool to write unit tests for me. So, right, to think about the friction points in your life. If you have a to-do list, for me, out of sight is out of mind, baby. So like make a to-do list, like a very small, simple one that you display on a TV in your house somewhere, like a small monitor, an old monitor with an old computer you don't use anymore. Just to like have a to-do list there to look at. Math, if you've got monthly expenses. If you're playing D&D and you need to calculate dice rolls, that's a great candidate. If you want to figure out how many days you're probably going to live on average and make yourself existentially sad, great tool. Decisions, this is a great one. Where to eat. If we're playing a D&D game, what random item am I going to give you as the dungeon master? These are like, this replaces a jar, right? A bucket full of paper, right? You could put in a bunch of decisions, random number generate, comes up with a thing. All of a sudden, it's much easier to pick where you're going to eat because everybody gets to throw in their suggestions, and then you pick one and stick with it. Metrics are questions that you have that like can be answered by time or by numbers. When is the McRib coming back? How many cheesecakes does the Cheesecake Factory have? We're going to answer that question here in a few minutes. Comms. I want to reply no to any solicitation email, whatever that means, right? If somebody is sending you an email, if Mark Zuckerberg is sending me an email to ask if I want to go work at Facebook, right, I want to auto reply no to that. Bueller, right, from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, that whole system where his parents don't go into his room, you could make some software out of that, right? Like you have a motion sensor, somebody walks in front of your door, you play some sounds, right? Creating. So you can make art digitally, right? And boy, I had a crisis while writing this. I'm sorry. Okay, so here's the other thing that I really need to convey to you. Whenever you start programming, it is going to be so tempting and so easy to fall into hustle culture and grind set. Both are a scam. I will tell you, both are a scam. So what you're going to want to do is take your hobby and monetize it, right? Because there's like a very large cultural push that's like, well, if your free time is spent relaxing, it's not productive. That's not good. You could be making money while you sleep. Warren Buffett never did that. Who cares? If you want to keep things fun, don't think about monetizing it, right? Keep it low stakes, get to where you want to go. And if you want to keep going, if you're having fun, go for it. But don't in the middle of a project decide, well, you know what I could do is if I add on a bunch of these features, if I put this up on a website, if I sent this to my friend that has like a blockchain of their own, then I could make a business, right? Like that's no longer programming as a hobby. And at that point, you're on the hook for a bunch of stuff. And that's a lot of pressure. Right. So let's look at my projects. This is a quote from me that I said right now. Okay. So I have a couple of places where I hide code away on the internet. One of them is here. So on Twitch, my username is Coding Vibe. That's my icon. And I have a bunch of open source projects. If you want to go to my GitHub, it's github.com/codingvibe. And I've got a bunch of projects here, and we're just going to kind of go through a few of them that I think are interesting, and a couple of one or two more personal ones, and then I'll get this sort of wrapped up, get you back about your day. It's a Friday. People don't want to be in here and listen to babbling forever. So number one, I'm going to save that one, the piece de resistance, for later. So I decided a long time ago that the Lo-Fi Girl chill beats to study to 24/7 stream on YouTube, I decided that I wanted to have that in my house. And so I did. I made my own. And I basically, like, this was a very long project that I did. But this is more or less what it looks like. This is just a site that runs locally on a thing that I have, a TV that I have like right over there. You can't see it, but it's over there. And if I unmute this, it's a little loud. I'm going to turn down that volume real quick. I completely forgot to do that. There we go. All right. So if I unmute this, basically I'm playing audio effects in here. Like, if you listen, there's people in the cafe that are talking. There's a barista that's making coffee. There are people that are walking outside of this window. And I'm filtering all these audio things, including the music, through an audio filter that will make it sound like the music and sound effects are coming out of the scene that you're looking at, right? And I wanted to do this because I thought that it would be silly to have a YouTube window open to Lo-Fi Girl all the time. I thought that would be silly. And I thought that I could do better. And so I don't know, in my opinion, I did. I'm now working on a second version of this, which does effectively the same thing, but the landscape is nicer. This is my art, so it's not that good, but it does change with time of day. So the sunrises and the sunsets. and things will change based off of that. So, right. This has no purpose. I probably can't monetize this, but it makes me happy to have in my house. And anytime that it's off, I am sad and I turn it back on. So projects like this, even if they're large, just like spending some time on them is always worthwhile, right? I'm gonna mute that before I don't think Zoom does DMCA, but just in case. Okay, so now I've got let me see. Yes, this one. This is a good project. So my friend and I, a friend that I grew up with, we started a podcast together because I guess that's just what you do when you become 30. So we started a podcast together. And so I've got this podcast workflow automator. What this actually is, on stream, I wrote all of this code. They're across a bunch of different repos, right? We use Buzzsprout to upload our podcast to. So it was like, well, let me like write a thing to where I don't have to go into the website and click a bunch of stuff in order to have it uploaded. I just tell a script when to do it and it does it. And then I said, well, we want this on YouTube as well. So let's like make a video automatically. How do you do that? And so I spent some time researching and then I wrote that. So now you could take your podcast, you give it a static image for the background and it puts an audio visualization on top. And then I wrote a YouTube uploader. So a thing that will just like take a video and upload it to YouTube. And then I slam them all together inside of this podcast workflow automator. So now all I have to do is, and this is like, I can show you what the command looks like. It is quite long, but I have a copy and paste of it where I just change what the episode title is, I change what the episode description is, and I change when the upload date is. And then it just does everything, right? The podcast is uploaded, the video is created, the video is uploaded, and the video and the podcast are both released at the same time. They have the same title and the same description. So from one piece of audio, we've got episode 23, the Batman No Spoilers episode. And then here it is on YouTube. And I didn't do anything. I didn't do any of this. And this saves me. I did a calculation on it. This saves me a good like 20 minutes of doing this. And if you take the amount of time that it took me to write this code, it ends up being more efficient if we record 80 episodes. So we're a quarter of the way there. And I will let you know if it ever pays off. But things like that, where it's just like, at the end of the night, I edit our podcasts and I'm done at like 11:30 and I need to go to bed because I have a 7-month-old. And that's just, you go to bed early when you have a baby. And so I was like, well, I really want to just like set this up to go and go to bed. And so I do that and that's it. Once the script is running, I leave. And it all just kind of works. So yeah, and the best thing about that particular project is that I broke things up into 3 particular things, right? I could use the Buzzsprout uploader by itself. I could use the video creator by itself and then upload it to YouTube manually if I wanted to. I could use the YouTube uploader if I had another YouTube channel, right? And then the last, let's see, is this the last one? Is there a third one? Oh, there is. Yeah. Okay. So this is from a different repo. You're here, you have old relatives, I do too. They don't understand Instagram, and that's fine. But again, I have a 7-month-old and they want to see pictures of my 7-month-old. So this is kind of a guilty thing. My son was like maybe a week old, 2 weeks old, and I spent maybe 4 or 5 hours writing this script to do this. When I could have spent it with him being like a dad, but like, I don't know, he's sleepy, I don't feel that bad. All right, so I have what I've called the Instapic email bot. What this does is this will take a look at the previous week and it'll just say like, hey, let me give you all the pictures from the previous week on Instagram. I'm going to download them. I'm going to make an email and then I'm going to send it out to this email list. That's all it does. Very simple. And now now your old relatives don't need an Instagram account to look at pictures of your baby. So that's awesome. And I get emails like this every week where there's a picture of me and my son's head. We're not going to show his face because that's like a family thing. My son is an enigma. So yeah, that's basically what this bot is. Very a simple thing that helps out like my family and probably no one else's. And I don't even know if this is against terms of service. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Okay, so the last one, Cheesecake Factory bot. So I turned this into a Twitter bot. I decided, my friend and I were talking on our podcast, and he said, "Dude, did you know they're going to open up this place in the mall? It's called Cheese Steak Cake Cheesecake Factory." And I said, "Yeah, Cheesecake Factory. How do you not know Cheesecake Factory?" And it's because we're from South Texas and he hasn't left. So why would he know what Cheesecake Factory is? So while we were talking about it, he said, he was like, "Well, is this like a liar name? Like, is Cheesecake Factory lying to me? Do they actually have cheesecake?" I said, "Yes. Yes, they have cheesecake." And on the podcast, I counted how many different kinds of cheesecake they had. And that was not good content. My initial thought was, I should write some software to do this. And so I did. And it eventually evolved into, let's just download the whole Cheesecake Factory menu and tweet anytime there's a change. Now, you could take a look at these tweets and argue that this isn't working, but I would argue that it is working. So we're talking to the Cheesecake Factory website, and we're grabbing like menu details, right? They took the side of bacon off the menu. That doesn't sound right, but like, if you look at like, I don't know, I grabbed the menu, there was no side of bacon on it. I don't know what you want me to do. At the beginning, they removed the hibachi steak, the caramel apple pancakes, kids grilled chicken, kids grilled salmon, and the to-go flavored lemonade. And then, surprise, surprise, 2 days later, they brought them all back. So something is probably going on with that API. Doesn't really matter. It's kind of a fun thing to do, though, is to like, I don't know, I just wanted to know how many pieces of cheesecake they have. And that turned into, let's tweet every time that there's a menu change. And that ended up being a super fun project. And so I ran this. And here are all the cheesecakes that Cheesecake Factory has, by the way. There are 32 of them. So just in case you were wondering, Cheesecake Factory has 32 distinct flavors of cheesecake. And that's technically not even all of the kinds of cheesecake you can order, because you can order whole cheesecakes as well. Anyway, so yes, all of these projects have like one thing in common, right? They're probably not useful to anyone else but me, but they're fun. And I had fun researching them. I had fun programming them. And I'm reaping the benefits. I know when Cheesecake Factory is going to add a new cheesecake. I'm going to know, dang it. And then I'll be able to count them whenever I want. My grandma can now look at pictures of my child because she doesn't understand Instagram, but she has an email, right? So it doesn't have to be as complicated as like, let's ingest a bunch of data from a third-party source. Let's clean it up. Let's run some AI on it. Let's categorize our data. Let's make sure that humans can read this thing. Let's monitor our metrics, right? You can throw all of that stuff in the garbage if you're doing it for a hobby. You don't even have to write tests to make sure that things work. You can just see that it works once and be like, it's probably good enough. Good enough is sort of the motto for a hobby programming. So yeah, in conclusion, here's some resources. This is my favorite one, automatetheboringstuff.com. It's a book called Automate the Boring Stuff with Python. And it is a book for total beginners. It's a bunch of just small projects that you can do on your own to figure out just if you like it, if you want to try some stuff, right? It's if you want to work with CSVs, if you work with Excel, if you work for, if you can program basically anything, right? And this just gives you a bunch of ideas for like whatever boring things you don't like doing, you can automate, and that's fine and good. You can go to Twitch. There's the software and game development section on Twitch. There are programmers on there all day, every day, programming a variety of things from not only games, but web dev, learning new programming languages, I have been watching she actually draws birds, I think, most of the time, but she's also been learning how to do Python on the weekends. And so that's been a really fun stream to watch. Coding Train, probably one of the longest coding YouTubers that's been around. Super professional, great YouTube channel. And oh, hello, Roomba. Roomba is a good example of programming. Freecodecamp.org is also, again, a free resource to be able to like learn how to do programming. They've got a lot of great lessons. 100 Days of Code is another initiative that a lot of people are taking place in. You can share with the community to sort of bolster your skills, show off what you've been working on, and get help and assistance from a larger development community. So that is it. This is my last slide. I'm not going to hit next. I remembered. So now it's time for questions and answers. I'm going to look in the chat. Is this bad? I don't know. I haven't seen the chat this whole time. Was this made in Canvas? Oh, are you talking about this bad boy? Yes. This is HTML. Oh, Canva. Okay, no. No, not made in Canva. That was made in a program called Sprite. Yeah. Are you sharing your screen's audio? Yes, I was. It was muted. Yeah. Okay, great. Does anybody have any questions? You can either pop them in the chat or unmute or whatever. It is 4 p.m. on a Friday. I wouldn't blame you if you were like, I don't know, I kind of just want to drink and leave.
This was fantastic, Colby.
I have my volume down. What?
This was really great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
You should present more. You do a great job.
I appreciate that. No.
You do every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, right?
That is true.
Well, plug it.
It doesn't look, it's not as professional as this. But yeah, I do stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. twitch.tv/codingvibe. Yeah, not this professional. I also do still keep it family friendly though. So if you wanted to put this on while there are children in the room, that would be fine. Probably.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna click stop recording.